Hello everybody, I'm Silly. This will be the one-shot entitled A Vigilante Kid by Silver Roses and Dragons on AO3. This is part 3 to the series entitled Shadow Sensei, the Vigilante Heroics Teacher. Summary. Eraserhead decided that this vigilante, who couldn't be older than his students, was his. He just had to convince the kid of that. Or Origin of Eraser and Shadow's partnership. Hence, this is a flashback. Eraserhead had, of course, heard of the new vigilante in the area, though he hadn't come across them yet, even though his patrol route covered some of the places where they'd been seen. Other heroes who had seen them described them as green and said they were good at sticking to the shadows and staying unnoticed when they wanted to, which may explain why Eraser hadn't come across them yet. It was about a month from when Eraser first heard about the vigilante, whom the heroes and police referred to as Greenie, or Green Shadow, when he first met the kid. He was on his regular patrol route when he heard a commotion from down an unlit alley, and a high-pitched scream. He quickly made his way to the alley, ready to stop an attack, but when he got to the roof of one of the buildings next to the alley, there was already a woman running away towards the street, and a large man was quickly incapacitated by a much smaller person in a dark-colored hoodie. He wondered for a moment if he should stop the smaller person, or maybe offer assistance, when they pulled zip ties out of a pocket in what appeared to be cargo pants, though it was hard to tell from the angle he was at with the low light. They tied the larger man's hands together behind him, and then quickly left the alley. Eraserhead moved to the front of the roof to watch as they went out onto the street. With the street lamps on the street, Eraserhead could see that the hoodie was a dark green color, and they were wearing dark army green cargo pants, as well as a black surgical mask. They looked around quickly, then started heading towards a shaking woman, and Eraserhead quickly noticed that it was the same woman who ran out of the alley a few minutes ago. He was about to jump down and interfere, not wanting to risk this person was another bad guy, when they called out, "Ma'am?" They stopped a few feet away from her huddled form. "The man who was trying to hurt you is tied up now. He won't be able to hurt you anymore, but I need you to tell me if you're hurt. Can you do that?" The woman looked up, her eyes wide and watery. I hit my head and my arm." She paused to rub at it. "He grabbed me here." "Okay, will you let me come closer so I can check your injuries? Then when I call for police to pick him up, I can let them know if you need medical treatment." Okay." They moved slowly as they approached and crouched down in front of her. "Can you show me where you hit your head?" She did, and they inspected the area. "Well, there's no blood, so that's a good sign. Does your head feel fuzzy at all?" Kinda. But that usually happens when I'm scared." "Well, it's still something a medic should probably look at. I'll let the police know when I call, okay?" "Okay." "Now, can you tell me your name?" "Naomi." "Okay, Naomi-san. I'm gonna call the police. You stay here, okay?" The woman nodded tearfully, and they stepped away, pulling out a flip phone. They were closer to Eraserhead then, so he could still hear as they lowered their voice. "Hi, dispatch. Yes, I'm calling to report an assault and attempted rape. The victim, Naomi-san, has minor bruises and a possible head injury. Yes, we're in Aki Ward, the 34th block in front of Building 7. No, I won't be here when the cops arrive. Naomi-san will be able to tell you what happened." The voice sounded younger than Eraserhead had expected, considering how professional they were being. They went back over to the woman. "Naomi-san, police are on their way, along with a medic to check on your head. They should be here in a few minutes. Are you gonna be alright here until then?" You're not staying?" the woman asked, sounding upset and fearful. "I'm gonna watch over you until they get here, somewhere that they won't be able to see me. I'm a vigilante, you see, and I don't want them to try and arrest me. If that happens, I might have to choose between being arrested, meaning I won't be able to help anyone anymore, or risk hurting someone trying to get away. Neither of those sound like a good option to me. I promise that I won't actually leave until they're here, okay?" The woman took a deep breath, then bowed slightly from her seated position. Okay, thank you. You don't need to thank me, but you're welcome, they said, then disappeared back into the alley. Eraserhead heard the quiet sounds of someone climbing a fire escape while trying to be quiet, and soon a head appeared over the edge of the roof he was crouched on. He waited until they were fully on the roof, not wanting them to fall, before he said, Well, that was quite the show, kid. It turned out he was right to wait, as the kids startled, jumping a little and jerking their head to look at him. Now that the kid was closer, Eraser thought that they were male, based on body type. Hi. The kid looked at him with wide eyes. Wait, are you Eraserhead? Eraserhead was surprised to be recognized, as it doesn't happen to him very often. Still, he just nodded once. Yeah, I'm assuming you're the one they are calling the Green Shadow? Yeah, it's a silly name, I know, but I didn't pick it, he said with a sheepish shrug. Are you gonna try and arrest me? He looked sad, watching Eraserhead with large eyes that looked a little wet. No, kid, I'm not. I don't see any reason to, as long as you're not too violent or putting yourself in serious danger, Eraserhead said. Okay, cool. Well, have a nice night, Eraser-san, he said, taking a few steps away. Kid, Eraser calls out, stopping him before he gets to the edge of the roof. He pulls a business card out of his utility belt and holds it out. If you ever need backup or something, call me, okay? Don't get yourself hurt because you're scared to ask for help. Okay. Thanks, the kid said, taking the card and quickly jumping to the next roof. Eraserhead started coming across the kid more often after that, seeing him along his patrol route and occasionally helping him with a takedown. The kid usually disappeared fairly quickly once the villain or criminal was taken down, though Eraser always tried to get him to stay and talk a little. About a month and a half after their first encounter, Eraser got fed up with the kid always running away from him. He came across the kid near the end of his patrol one night, and it was one of the few times that neither of them needed to worry about a villain when they met. Considering this, Eraser made a decision. Hey, Eraserhead, the kid said. Have a nice rest of your night. He immediately moved to continue on his way, but Eraserhead wasn't going to let that happen that night. Kid, wait up, he said. The kid paused, turning back to blink at him. Come with me. Pass. I don't really feel like getting arrested tonight, thanks, the kid said, moving to start running in the other direction. Eraser shot his capture weapon out, catching the kid. I'm not gonna arrest you, kid. I just want to talk. If you won't stay willingly, I will make you. But you'll be free to go when we're done talking. The kid looked skeptical, but slumped a little within his restraints. Fine, he mumbled. Eraserhead nodded and released the boy from his capture weapon, keeping a close eye out to be sure he didn't make a run for it. Follow me, he said. He led them to a park that seemed to be abandoned that late at night, or really, that early in the morning. What do you want me to call you, kid? You don't seem to like the name the police and other heroes have given you very much. Oh, well, I haven't really thought about it, the kid said. Maybe just Shadow? People you work with usually just call you Eraser, right? Like a nickname? Alright, kid. Shadow it is, then, Eraser said. Now show me your gear. What? The kid, Shadow, said, blinking at him. Your gear, kid. Weapons, first aid, whatever. Show me what you carry when you patrol. Why? The kid asked, his hands going defensively to his hip, not like he was going to pull a weapon, but like he was reassuring himself that something was still there. So I can make sure it's significant, Eraser said. Look, kid, I'm a teacher. You can't be any older than some of my students, and I don't want to see you get hurt if I have the opportunity to help you. The kid hesitated some more, but eventually slumped his shoulders. Fine, he said again. He started pulling things out of the pockets of his cargo pants, laying them out on a neatly picnic table for Eraserhead's inspection. A moment later, a collection of tools was laid out on the table, and not exactly one that Eraserhead was happy with. There was a utility knife, the kind that could be found at any kind of outdoor store, which was probably the best tool the kid had. There was also a mini tool, a decent amount of bandages, zip ties, a piece of pipe, and a slingshot. Actually, maybe the slingshot was the best. It was a long-distance weapon, at least. Eraser sighed. Well, the knife and the slingshot are definitely a good idea, and so are the bandages. He started, not wanting to only put down the kid's choice of gear. That being said, this is nowhere close to sufficient. I don't exactly have access to support tech, and it's not like I have a ton of money to buy stuff with anyway, the kid said, sounding defensive. Eraser sighed. I know. I just don't like the idea of you being out on the streets unprepared. Here's the deal. I can't legally provide you with weapons or anything of the like, but I will help you stock up your medical supplies. Don't complain. You might need it to give a civilian emergency first aid at some point, and I expect you to do research into first aid on your own. Understand? He said, using his teacher voice to get the message across. Yes, sir, the kid muttered, hanging his head slightly. Good. Eraserhead nodded. Now, I will also be helping you train with the makeshift weapons you already have, or can get your hands on yourself, as well as parkour and hand-to-hand. The kid's head snapped up at that. What? Why? Because I don't want you to die, kid. So you're gonna train with me twice a week around my patrols until I feel that you are less than likely to get yourself killed. Understood? Yes, sir, the kid said again, seemingly responding to his no-nonsense tone of voice. Good, Eraserhead said, then dropped into a ready stance. Not that most people would be able to tell with how relaxed he looked. Now, show me what you've got. What? The kid started to say before dodging a lazy punch. What the fuck? We're sparring. Try to hit me back while still defending yourself. What's this? Shadow asked a few weeks later. They'd just finished their training session for the day when Eraserhead handed him a bento. Food. Eat. Was all the man said in explanation. What? But, why? Because you're too small and my husband is a softie. The kid blinked at him for a moment before he slowly said, Right, your husband, you talk about me at home? Of course I do, Eraserhead said. He and Shadow haven't talked about their families with each other yet, but he doesn't feel the need to hide it from the kid. He trusts Shadow enough to feel comfortable sharing some general information about his life outside of work. I always tell my family some about my patrols, and you have been around for quite a few of those recently. Right, Shadow said. He slowly opened the bento. He hesitated, then turned away before pulling his mask down to eat. Thank you, he said as he handed back the empty box not too long later. And please thank your husband for me as well. The food was very good. He'll be glad to hear that. Eraserhead smiled tiredly back. Why did you become a vigilante? Eraserhead asked, about 4 months after the two met. They were sitting side by side on a rooftop, Shadow eating the bento Eraser brought for him every night. It was the end of Eraser's patrol, and the two had been in a mid-fight together not too long before. There was a long silence, and Eraserhead assumed the kid was going to ignore the question. But eventually, he said quietly, I don't know. I've always wanted to help people, to save people. I wanted to be a hero my whole life, but I finally got it through my head that it's not possible, I guess. I didn't really mean to become a vigilante at first. It just started with helping a few people, and then it became a habit, and I couldn't stop. Eraser listened carefully, though he did not look at the kid. He watched the city waking up below them, knowing that the kid was trusting him to not look at his face. Why do you think you couldn't be a hero? You are obviously plenty capable. Because no hero school would ever admit me. Most wouldn't even let me sit the entrance exams after one look at my paperwork. The kid says, sounding sad. You have a mark on your record? Eraserhead asked, surprised. He didn't actually know who the kid was, sure, but he'd like to think he knew Shadow pretty well by that point. He couldn't imagine the kid doing anything bad enough to automatically exclude him from entrance to most hero schools. Something like that. The kid's voice is bitter. Look, don't worry about it. I can't be a hero, but I can do this. I can help people. Eraser doesn't want to drop it, but he knows that pressing for more will only push the kid away. Alright, problem child, if that's what you want. He reached over and ruffled his hand gently over the kid's hood, careful to not dislodge it. The kid sighed and leaned into him a little. The problem child seemed more tired than normal, not in a didn't sleep well yesterday way, but in a haven't slept well in days and is stressed way. Eraserhead recognized it because he'd seen it on himself plenty of times. Is something wrong, Shadow? He risked asking. You seem a little off lately. The kid shook his head. I'm fine, it's just... Well, I'm kinda, homeless now? I mean, not really homeless, but my mom kicked me out, so I guess familyless would be more accurate? You could stay with me, Eraserhead said before he even fully processed what the kid said, and definitely without deciding to. He meant it, though, when he thought about it. He already cared for this kid, and he didn't think that Hazashi and Hitoshi would really mind. The kid let out a chuckle, but it was disbelieving and self-deprecating. No. Thank you, though. Why not? Eraser asked before he could stop himself. The kid stares at him like he's lost his mind for a moment. I don't even want you to see my face, Eraser. You know nothing about my real identity, my history, my quirk. Trust me, it wouldn't work out. Besides, you have a family. A family that could include you, he wanted to say, but didn't. Instead, he sighed. If you ever change your mind, or if you need anything, you have my number. Thanks, Eraser, the kid says. I'll keep that in mind. The first time Eraserhead saw the kid's face was not ideal. He almost would have rather not seen it at all, considering the circumstances. The kid got in over his head in a fight with multiple villains, and by the time Eraserhead arrived, the kid was already hurt. More than anything, he was glad that he had been close enough to hear the commotion, even though it meant he had to see the kid get slammed into a wall and not get back up. He took care of the two hulking villains still standing and bound the one the kid had managed to take down before he got there, glad that none of them had mutation quirks. He called Tsukachi for a pickup before rushing to where Shadow was slumped against the ground, unconscious. Problem child, he said gruffly, shaking his shoulder. Can you wake up for me? When he got no response, he sighed and started checking for injuries. There was blood on the back of the kid's head, but nothing to really worry about. Wanting to make sure he didn't miss any injuries, he carefully removed the kid's jacket. Luckily, all he could see on the kid's arms were the regular bruises, and when he pushed the t-shirt underneath up to check his ribs, it didn't seem that anything was broken. He took the kid's mask off to check his face for injuries, and got his first good look at it. Shadow's cheeks and nose were heavily freckled, and his face was tanned, implying he spent a decent amount of time outside in the days, as well as the night. Luckily, he didn't have a broken nose, though his face was a little puffy and starting to bruise, showing that he had taken a hit there during the fight. Eraser was just glad that the kid wasn't hurt worse. Eraser, he heard a voice call out, not long after he finished checking the kid over. He put the kid's mask back on and looked up to see that the police had arrived, sirens off because it was an emergency, seeing as the criminals had already been detained. Tsukachi, he said in response, standing up and stepping towards the detective. Who's that? One of the criminals, the man asked, stepping closer. Oh, you're Vigilante? Eraserhead wanted to protest the idea that the kid was his Vigilante, but he didn't get the chance. Is he okay? Eraserhead sighed. I'm not sure. Nothing seems to be broken, but he hasn't regained consciousness since he was thrown into the wall. Well, I called for medical just in case anyone needed it, so you can have them check him over, the detective said with a shrug. That's one way to lose all the trust I managed to gain from him. Eraserhead paused, regarding Sakachi. You aren't gonna try to arrest him, are you? Officially, I have to if given the opportunity. Unofficially, I'd rather he stay free. He's good at this, and vigilante reform programs are really difficult to get into. Besides, he's helping us out, the detective said, lowering his voice for the last part. You can instruct the paramedics to leave his mask on if you've already checked for injuries there yourself. No one else needs to see his face. Unofficially, of course. Just don't tell anyone who he is. Of course not. He's just a student that was helping me on patrol, Eraserhead said. It wasn't even really a lie. Shadow was his student, even if the boy didn't go to UA. Sakachi sighed but nodded, walking over to help collect the criminals. Stop by the station to give your report within the next 24 hours, Eraser. He called over his shoulder. Eraserhead didn't bother responding, all his focus on the kid in front of him. When medical arrived, they gave the kid the all clear, thank goodness. The kid freaked out when he woke up in a stretcher, though. He looked around in a panic before his eyes locked onto Eraser's, and after a moment, he glared. Why am I in an ambulance? Shadow asked, and Eraserhead could hear the fear hidden under the defensive anger. Because you were thrown into a wall and didn't regain consciousness. Don't worry, kid. None of the medics saw your face. Your mask is still on. The man explained. Shadow narrowed his eyes at the pro. But someone did. Otherwise you would be reassuring me that no one saw my face. Damn, the kid was too smart and observant for his own good. Yeah, kiddo. I checked you for injuries before anyone else got here, Eraserhead admitted. You don't have to worry, though. You know I have no interest in arresting you. I don't want you to know who I am, Eraserhead, the kid said sharply, and the hero was a bit surprised to hear him use that tone on his hero name. The kid wrapped his arms around himself, and Eraserhead quickly realized that it was because the kid was trying to hide how vulnerable he was feeling. I don't know who you are, kiddo, he said calmly. I would recognize you if I saw you unmasked again, sure, but I can't exactly figure out your identity just from your face without a lot of hard work that I have no reason to put in. I'm sorry that I saw your face when you weren't ready for me to, but it doesn't change anything, Shadow. Shadow studied him for a long moment, seeming to assess his truthfulness. You saw how young I am, though. How young I look, at least, the kid said, the last part added on hurriedly, as if just remembering not to give any more away than he already had to. We already knew you were young. We've known that you were young since the beginning, kid. And sure, you're a bit younger than I assumed, but it doesn't really change anything, Eraser assured. I still don't want to arrest you. I'm still going to teach you, be there for you, and I still just want you to be safe. I promise. The kid took a deep breath, visibly steeling himself before he said, Okay. Am I good to go then? Not quite. You haven't eaten your bento yet, Eraser said with a smirk, pulling it out and handed it over to the boy, whose eyes lit up at the mention of the cold food. Thanks, he mumbled. You can't be old enough to be out on your own for this long, Eraserhead said one day, when the kid had been on his own for a month and a half. The kid snorted and shook his head. Don't worry about it, I'm fine. Are you even old enough to be in high school yet? I know the foster system is fucked up, but it can't be worse than living out on the streets. The kid scoffed in response. The streets are safer, trust me. Kids like me don't survive the foster system. Eraser frowned. I know it's bad, but kids don't actually disappear from the system very often, and you wouldn't be put in a place where you would be in real danger. Existing in this world puts me in danger, Eraser. Japan would rather I disappear. I could be attacked in broad daylight, in front of dozens of witnesses, and the police wouldn't even investigate. No Daylight Pro would save me if I was caught up in a villain attack once they realized who I am. That's just how the world works. Kid, why do you think that? Eraser asked, taken aback by the callous way the kid said all of that. The kid looked away, and Eraserhead could see his shoulders tensing, as if posed to run or block a blow. I'm quirkless. Eraser didn't know how to respond to that. He froze for a solid minute. What the kid said about not being able to get into hero schools made so much more sense. Most schools would consider quirklessness an unforgivable black mark. When he finally snapped out of it, all he could think to say was, "Kiddo." "Don't," the kid said, voice sounding choked. "I'll go. It was nice knowing you, Eraser." He only got 2 steps away before Eraserhead drew himself together enough to respond. "Shadow," he said. He couldn't make it better. Everything the kid said was true for quirkless people, after all, so he didn't try. "Where do you think you're going? We still have training to do." It was the kid's turn to freeze then. Slowly, he turned back to face the underground hero. You still want to train me? Even though I'm a Deku?" Eraser crossed his arms. "I don't allow that kind of language from my students. Humans lived and fought without quirks for thousands of years before the dawn of quirks. Beside that, I fight mostly quirkless. I have the advantage that most of my opponents can't use their quirks when they fight me, but against mutant quirks, I am functionally quirkless. If I can fight like that, so can you. Besides, you've already proven your ability to me in the time we've known each other. Your quirk status doesn't change that." Eraserhead could see Shadow's eyes crinkle with a smile over his mask. "Okay." Alright, everybody, that concludes the one-shot entitled A Vigilante Kid. Please make sure to check out the Discord if you haven't already. If you would like to get updates easier, get connected with people within the fanfiction community, make requests for a podfic, and more. The link to the server will be in the description. Now I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for listening.